Hello and welcome to your Year 6 transition activity with science. Your learning question for today is, can I complete a science investigation? Stretch opportunity today is, in the investigation we're going to carry out, what was the independent variable? Now before you start, I'd like you to have a think. Could you talk about 5 things that you've done in primary school that are science, or just 5 facts that you know already about science? Once you're ready, move on to the next slide. Please watch the video. You've probably seen it before. What I'm looking for is by the end of this video, you can give me the definitions of independent variable, dependent variable and control variable. There are sentences on the next slide to give you a hand with this. Now, thankfully, I am not going to sing along to this. People who are in my class already get treated to that often enough. So, fill in the sentences. Independent variables are the ones you something. Dependent variables are the ones you something. And then control variables all stay the something. If you need a hand, the 3 words in no particular order are measure, keep the same and change. Now that you've got the correct science vocabulary for today's activity, we can start looking at what we need to do. So we're going to do something called the Great Bottle of Biscuit Investigation. Mrs. Potter, me, does like a good brew. She also likes to dunk a biscuit in, but I don't like it when it goes soggy. Can you help me discover the best biscuit for dunking? So far we know we want to find out what the best biscuit is for me to dunk. So we're going to think of doing this at home. We need to think about the equipment that you would have available to you at home to do this. So your challenge is to find out which biscuit can be dunked for the longest without falling apart and becoming soggy. Draw out what equipment you think you would use from home and click on once you've done that. Now, I imagine for the last slide, if it's slightly different, it's fine. There's different ways to approach things. You would have a cup of tea, you would have various biscuits, and you would have some kind of timer. It's quite an old-fashioned one on there. You could use a timer on your phone, you could use a stopwatch, whichever way you want to do it. Now, in a lab, if I was doing it, we do it a little bit differently, which is fine. Now, if you look at the picture, we've got the retort stand and the clam holding the biscuit in place. That means we can have the same amount of biscuit each time touching the water. We also have a thermometer because it's important that we do it the same temperature each time to make it a fair test. And we're standing that on a tripod. This is where you need to use your brains a little bit and think about those key words that we learned at the beginning of the lesson, and then about the investigation that we're about to do. Can you name the variables? So the independent, what is it we're going to change in the investigation? So what are we going to do different each time? What was the dependent variable? What are we measuring in this investigation? And the control, talked about some of those on the last slide. What would it be important to keep the same? Have a go at your answers and then check on the next slide. Our independent variable was the type of biscuit, because we're going to try different biscuits to see which one dunks best. Our dependent, what we're measuring, is the time before it becomes soggy and breaks up. And our control is what we need to keep the same. So the same temperature of water, you could have also put the same amount of biscuit into the cup each time, and that's great. Before we do any practical, we have to consider the safety aspect. Now, hot water causes scalds. You need to make sure you've asked a grown-up before carrying this out. Okay, someone who you live with needs to know if you are carrying this out. I know you probably make cups of tea already, but we just need to keep you safe. Also, self-explanatory, but I have to say it, don't put your fingers into the hot water with the biscuit. Now, you don't need goggles for this one because it's all things that you would use having a cup of tea. But do make sure you take care around that hot water. Now it is experiment time. It's time to choose 3 biscuits and record your results in the table below. If you're unable to do the experiment at home, I've included some information below that you can use. Just fill in the table with that. So you've got 3 types of biscuit and time before it went soggy. Feel free to do more than that. If you've got 1 biscuit at home, do with that and top it up with my results. Then we've got a results table. Move on to the next slide, please. When we do investigations, it's important not to just do the investigation, but to look at what the results show us. So we're going to use our results at this point. So number 1 here, if you know how to draw a bar chart, please can you draw me an accurate bar chart of your results? I've put your axes along there, your type of biscuit, and your dunking time up the side, so you'll just need to add your times up the side and then put your bars on. And then number 2 that everyone should be able to do is to write a conclusion for the investigation. Now, all a conclusion is a couple of sentences to say what you found out. Okay, you can state your results first. Biscuit A took this amount of time, biscuit B took this amount of time. Then you say what those results mean. So which one would be the best one for me to dunk? Which one am I going to be able to dunk best without it going horrible and soggy? That investigation will give you a taste of the way that we do practicals. Now, what I did, because I was interested, is I went on Google and I had a look and I found these official results. It doesn't matter if you got slightly different results. These people would have, it would have been what was called an average of all the different results. So here are the standard biscuits ranked from worst to best with their breaking time and recommended dunking time. So Hobnobs took 15 seconds to break, and people recommend you only dunk them for 5 seconds, all the way up to Digestives, which took 48 seconds to break, but at the same time they still recommend dunking it for 5 seconds. That concludes our transition lesson today. I hope you enjoyed it. All of the science team look forward to welcoming you in September, and we look forward to seeing you at Sir Thomas Boteler.